These guys do not know the meaning of going easy and will take every opportunity to rough things up. Be it the clash between the elementals or hand-to-hand combat, these battles had us gritting our teeth at the very edge of our seats, wondering if someone was going to bite the dust any time now. Welcome to Animepill, I'm Rafa, and today we will walk you through some of the most brutal and close-to-death anime battles of all time. Before we get started, a sub to the channel would be much appreciated and will keep you updated for future uploads. But for now, let's get brutal. And yes, huge spoilers ahead. While Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood has a lot of battles, and most of which do feature a lot of deaths, those battles were mostly one-sided, as the receiving end of the parade didn't get much of a chance. This fight, however, is a straight-out brawl and sees both of our fighters punching the ever-loving shit out of each other. When Father finally succeeds in completing his long-thought plan of opening the gates of heaven and pulling God himself to Earth, he becomes indestructible with no firepower or alchemy working against him. Edward charges with everything he has, only to get his arm pierced through steel and get his entire body beaten to a pulp. Lucky for him, Polheimheim pulled a Batman on Father and weakened him momentarily. Ed takes the opportunity of this opening and starts bashing Father's face with raw lefts and rights and knocks him out for good. The sheer rawness of this fight, along with Ed's desperations and year-long frustrations, make you feel as if you are the one pummeling the godlike villain to his certain demise, making it one of the most satisfactory beatdowns ever. Some of you may have not heard of this fight, or this anime in general. Psycho Pass is one of the best cyberpunk anime there is, with a little bit of detective flavour and insane hand-to-hand and arm battles. Regarded by many as one of the greatest hand-to-hand battles in all of anime, when Kogami Shinya, the ex-detective turned enforcer, exchanges blows with Makishima Shogo, the criminally asymptomatic serial killer, things get bloody pretty quickly. Kogami is driven by a strong sense of revenge against Makishima, and when he finally gets his hands on the white-haired wolf, he is prepared to kill at any cost. Both of them go back and forth with fast-paced knife battles, fist fights, as well as some sneaky attacks. Makishima gets the better of Kogami for the most part, almost succeeding in ending him. But Kogami finally turns the table and, spoiler alert, shoots Makishima after his attempt to flee fails. It is gory, it is bloody, but most of all, it is badass. This fight will take the word insane, shove it down your throat, and leave you wanting more. The most breathtaking fight in the entire Hellsing franchise, the rematch of these two is what really brings closure to their long rivalry. When Alucard finally decides that playtime is over and transforms into his true form, Anderson steps up to the challenge. This is a rather one-sided fight, but there were certain instances where Anderson came close to fatally injuring Alucard, and even got the Vampire King's attention when he transformed into a monster of the god. And those worm things coming out of his face were so hard to watch. What makes this fight near death is the fact that even though Alucard nearly severed one of Anderson's arms, Anderson held that damaged limb with his jaw and used his jaw as leverage and kept swinging that sword till the very end. The one fight that will be remembered until oblivion, simply because the sheer amount of meme content it produced. Comical factors aside, this fight is still a thing of beauty, with both fighters pushing themselves to the utmost limit, making sure no mistakes are made. Jotaro's long-awaited face-off with the Vampire Dio and the battle they have is something fans will always be grateful for. The amount of times Ora and Muda ring in our ears is just insane, and leaves us wondering who's yelling faster. Every one of Dio's time freeze attacks is a close one for Jotaro, as he struggles and barely survives the devastating blows that could potentially end his life. This is one of the most dramatic fights in Zawaruro! Gintama is widely famous as one of the most funny anime ever created. You can barely see any serious action or tension in the atmosphere when watching this show, as our favourite characters are all busy trolling other shows or trolling each other, and Gintoki, our beloved carefree samurai, is a master when it comes to making people laugh. This is all the reason why this fight was full of emotions and a masterpiece of storytelling. The show completely abandoned its fundamental elements and went R-rated with all the blood and fast-paced action. When Gintoki finally snaps and thinks it's about time to put Takatsuki down for good, the two samurai battle their hearts out as they swing their swords back and forth. The raw force of Gintoki's wooden sword and the piercing precision of Takatsuki's steel leaves both the men bloodied and wounded, so much so that their entire faces are covered in red. Each fighter tries their best to parry or block the other's strike, but when they do land a strike, it is absolutely vicious and fatal, making us wonder whether or not they're making it out alive. Fighting someone tough is not something our heroes prefer to do on a daily basis, but when that tough dude was once your brother in arms, then things get pretty personal, as well as difficult. Spike Spiegel's encounter against Vicious was inevitable and was teased throughout the series. When it actually happened, fans were anxious and excited to see how it would unfold. When Julia is finally killed by Vicious's men, as Spike is broken and is tired of this long fighting, he heads towards Vicious's headquarters, certain of his inevitable demise. Spike makes it through the goons, and when it comes down to business, the two men do not hesitate at all as we see amazing hand-to-hand combat, along with swordsmanship and gunslinging from both parties back and forth. The sheer amount of emotions and motive that drive Spike certainly leads him to victory, but at the cost of his own life. If there's one word that defines this fight, then it's devastation, as this fight is all about wrecking your opponent to death. Literally. Not only did these two behemoths wreck each other down, they completely level the landscape they're fighting on, as their powers are simply off the charts. Ichigo's attempt to save Orihime from Aizen's goons seems pretty frail as he struggles to beat his level commanders, but things get real when he comes across the one and only Ulquiorra. Ichigo is no match for Ulquiorra, and he beats Ichigo to death, even when Ichigo is in his hollow form, and yes, Ichigo technically died in that battle. However, Orihime's cry for help triggers something in Ichigo as he wakes up from the dead with a body more demonic than the scariest hollows. The form known as Vastro Lord. When Ulquiorra realizes that he is no match for this powerhouse, he quickly switches to defense, but that doesn't stop him from getting beaten to a bloody pulp. Some fans might argue on whether or not this fight belongs so top on this list, but considering how well each sequence was animated and how emotional each strike was, it absolutely does, and this fight is as close to death as we can imagine. Tanjiro's encounter against the lower fifth moon is quite shocking, as he himself did not think it was that creepy little kid Rui. Rui's powers are overwhelming, and he makes quick work of Tanjiro. Breaking a lot of bones in his body and leaving him wounded in multiple parts. Tanjiro wouldn't have stood a chance if Rui did not hurt Nezuko, but as Rui starts to draw blood from Nezuko, Tanjiro goes nuts and unleashes the power of Hinokami. With his broken sword cloaked in fire, he barely manages to decapitate Rui, until of course we realize Rui decapitated himself to survive. He died to cheat death. Even after decades since it first aired, this fight remains legendary, as a lot of anime communities consider this to be the greatest anime showdown in history. You know, a fight was bloody and brutal when it goes on for more than 4 hours and not a single moment is boring. Goku was initially in his normal form when trading blows with Frieza, and wasn't doing too well against the tyrannical space pirate. But when Frieza decides Krillin needs to go see God, Goku decides it's time for Frieza to go see the devil, and he finally transforms into Super Saiyan, the then legendary form. Even after going Super Saiyan, the two are pretty evenly matched as both of them trade blows at lightning speed, destroying mountains and causing massive floods on the planet. After a long, brutal fight, Goku manages to put down Frieza as Frieza botches his own attack, cutting himself in half, which finally puts an end to this long fight. Well, that isn't really the end, as Goku does offer Frieza help, but you know the rest, and if you don't, I suggest you go check it out yourself. It is glorious. Did you really think this was going to be anything else after what we saw when Naruto and Sasuke clashed for the final time in the Final Valley? The long-awaited rematch between the two main characters of the show certainly delivers masterpieces of story and action, though it did not answer the question about who would actually win. After successfully sealing Kaguya, Sasuke announces that he will kill all the current leaders and his comrades will create a better world all on his own. Naruto, realizing that talk no jutsu isn't going to work, decides to fight his best friend, attempting to beat some sense into him. The fight is everything from ninja to Digimon to absolute carnage, as both of them dish out powerful ninjutsus after ninjutsus and turn into literal titans, as their clash causes an entire thunderstorm. Things finally come to an end when both of them clash, with a final Rasengan and Chidori, as they both lose an arm, and Naruto finally scores the victory with a final talk no jutsu. So that was our list of the top 10 close-to-death anime battles of all time. You might see some legendary fights missing from this list, and that may be because this is a list strictly about fights that saw our beloved characters on the verge of death. If you still think we missed something, then do let us know in the comments, and if you liked today's video, a thumbs up and a sub to the channel would, as always, be much appreciated. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.